Greetings and good evening, good afternoon, good day, however. Welcome to Documentation Not Included, episode 6.0, Worldwide Game Design Video Game Theory. Try saying that 40 times fast. Thank you so much for joining us here live today on Twitch. For you, those of you who are watching, say hi in Twitch so that we can say hello to you as we introduce our special guest today. For those of you who are listening in the future, we really hope to see you on our podcast. Let's see you on a podcast. Wow, we've already started the stream. Good job, Josie. We hope to see you live in our Twitch chat at some point in time in the future, Thursday nights, 7 p.m. GMT. Now, we have the usual bestest devs ever. We have Chris.
Yo, yo, yo.
We have Patrick, who unfortunately can only breathe through one hole in his body, and it's the one he uses to talk with.
Today I am.
And we'll leave it to you to figure out which hole that is.
Today I am Dark Plagueus or Servant or Nurgle, all the things that are relating to sickness and just basically being in pain all the time because, hey, it's winter. Don't we love winters?
Exactly. And of course, I'm Josie. And to match the fact that our guest, Bradley McAvoy-James, has a beard, Patrick has a beard, as I bunny ear that, and Chris has the epic beard, I decided to also engage in the practice of beard wearing officially. So I am wearing a beard today.
I'm complaining about it constantly as well.
Yeah. I don't know how you all do this. It's just I'm keep getting hair in my mouth.
Just you're the perfect beard wearer because all of them complain about their beards and they keep having them and oiling and stroking, and that got weirdly sexual. So let's move on.
Well, you can already tell tonight's going to be a good stream. So before I pass it over to Chris, who is going to, drill our guest a little bit, and again, that just sounds even worse. I want to say a quick hello to people in chat. Hello to Faradell. Hello to Nubian Prince TV. Hello to Samroxski.
Indeed.
Roxky. I might be totally butchering your name. I'm sorry.
It doesn't matter. His name's green on my screen, so I can't read it anyway. It's
green screen.
It's that odd colour that you can't quite get on the white background. Yes.
Then
so
why
anyway,
don't you make it dark?
Let's find out a bit more about Brad then. Who are you? What do you do? Why have you got 3 names, etc.?
I'll start with the 3 names. I got married, and instead of forcing my beautiful wife to have the name Helen James, because that's boring, we decided to double barrel our surnames. So we became Helen McAvoy-James and Bradley McAvoy-James because, that just sounds cooler. Yeah. Fun fact, we did have a lot of complaints at our wedding where people want us to call ourselves James McAvoy purely because of the actor, but it's the whole reason we didn't do it. Because
McAvoy-James, it's a mouthful.
Yeah, but James McAvoy, it's like, oh, you Google our names, suddenly everyone just sees the actor, and it's like, oh, that's really unhelpful. Keep that social media presence, guys. Come on.
So you've Googled your own name then?
All the time.
I actually Googled my own name today, weirdly, for the first time in years, and some fat guy came up. It wasn't me.
No, I was just like, no, I don't want to have that problem. But no, generally about me, I have been in games pretty much since I can remember. I've always wanted to be in games since I was 4 or something. So my whole life was geared towards that. Nothing really, anything. I never had a backup plan. I'm a bad example, but I knew what I wanted to do, so I just did it. I went to university. I really wanted to get into programming more than anything, and I got to university and I sucked at it. I could do it, but just not as efficient as everyone else. So I did all my work and I'd be getting grades, but it was a struggle for me. So I thought, okay, we can do art. So I did art. It was better at art, but still not as good as people. So I'm like, hey, look at this really cool thing I've made, guys. And they're like, we've made a whole environment here. This is a forest. I've modeled every individual leaf. And I'm like, I've made a very impressive car. I'll go over there. And that was pretty much it. But what I did find I excelled in was paperwork and writing and generally just doing documentation, research, things like that. So I decided to double down on that. When I got to my 3rd year, They were like, write a final year project. And I was like, okay. And I wrote something that was equivalent to like 2 master's theses, and not really realizing what I'd done. I gave it to my supervisor, just like, what have you done? Why have you done this to me? So I decided to really go in hard on that route. So I started doing consultancy. Right. I started publishing papers in academia. I got picked up by companies in London who wanted a creative director for the independent projects they were bringing in from America and from Japan and places like that. And I ended up sort of using that money to fuel my master's degree, which I did. And then halfway through my master's, they're like, you know what? We want to offer you a PhD opportunity. I was like, I mean, hell yeah, I'll do that. So I ended up starting doing a PhD opportunity. That's the time I met.
That isn't the response I would have. That isn't the response I would have if someone offered me a PhD.
I was just
wait.
It was
have you defended your thesis yet, or do we have to call you Dr. Bradley?
No, I'm defending my thesis yet. No, I'm in the process. That will happen in when's the final date now? September next year.
So next year, when we have you on, we'll have to call you Dr. Bradley.
Probably, hopefully, cross fingers. We'll see.
Wouldn't that be like Dr. McAvoy-James? Don't you like Dr. surname usually? I don't. At least in Poland, you say Dr. name.
Most people in this field don't use it anyway. So you removed the beard finally.
I had hair moving everywhere. It was getting in my. It was impacting my ability to talk and to pay attention. And oh my God, does my face itch?
Welcome to us all the time.
Nah, I've got well past the itching stage. Well past. Okay, so yes, I think it's icebreaker time, isn't it?
It is indeed icebreaker question time. Now, the way we do this show is we can bring guests in and we can talk to them about their favorite programming language. We can talk to them about their favorite IDEs. That's not what we do with our icebreaker. With our icebreaker, I bring a question that has, well, I guess in this particular case, you could apply it to what we talk about, but I try to mix it up a little bit. So my question for you today is this. If you could instantaneously learn and master one skill, what skill would it be and why? And for those of you who are listening in the future and for those of you watching right now, please let us know. We want to see what your one skill that if you could just instantaneously master it, what would it be and why? And for those listening in the future, tweet us at #DNIstream. I want to know.
I instantly got one. The ability to punch people through TCP/IP protocol, because frankly, some people do it.
It must be a make a skill up. It's not possible. It's not a thing.
The thing is, I have to say, there's probably an RFC out there somewhere that someone has actually written for something like that. However, I applaud you for going TCP instead of UDP so that you could guarantee that the packets hit. Whereas UDP, you can't guarantee that the packets hit.
Obviously, I need to be sure of the delivery. To be fair, I will set up for a pimp slapping through TCP/IP. So. I just need to know that my pimp slaps are being received, and that would make me really happy. And I think that would make a world a better place also, so everyone wins.
Interesting.
Smarksky in chat has just said something that somebody at my networking yesterday said, that they clicked on our on my LinkedIn link for the podcast, started listening, they're not technical at all, and they just went, what the are you talking about? You no idea whatsoever. So yeah, unfortunately, we cater for technical people. Really, I think we thought we were going to go a little bit. Yeah,
we try to teach and educate, but we're going to have some side projects coming in for that.
It's a shame we can't do anything, but it's hard. It's very difficult in this space to do that.
The IT world is just too vast.
So go on, Josie, go and give us your icebreaker. Then what are you? What's your answer to it?
The one skill that if I could just right now learn it and have it for life and be the master of it would literally be languages. Every possible type of language, whether it's spoken, binary, math, programming language, development language. I want to be able to, in one moment, turn to someone and speak in Serbian, and in the very next moment, turn to somebody and speak to them in Norwegian, and then turn around and be able to take all the things that they're saying and just translate it into some kind of application that would be useful and beneficial. So for me, it's just being able to be, I can barely speak proper English. Although I tease my husband because he's British and I'm like, you speak an archaic form of English.
I think you find it's correct English, not proper English.
It's archaic English. I'm sorry. You speak a very archaic form of English. Americans speak a very modern form of English. This is what I tease him with, mind you.
Actually.
Up and everything. He's like, ooh, I'm going to dive in.
Well, the thing is, I'm known as the butcher of languages because I get my words mixed up, or when someone gives me something to pronounce, I get it so horribly wrong. And so it just is an opportunity for me to not get that wrong.
That
would be my skill.
I like yours, Josie. I think it wouldn't be my choice, only because I don't feel like languages has limited me in my life. One thing that has limited me, well, I say that, I'm actually very happily married, and I've got a wonderful, wonderful wife, but chatting up girls. If I had not met my wife, that would be my choice. I would instantly, I'd want to be able to do that, because I was useless at it my entire, teenage years and that. But now,
I have to just stop here and think. Do you know the easiest way to chat up women? Dating advice from Documentation Not Included here.
Remember that whole branching out thing you were just talking about? I like the direction.
Yeah. The easiest way to chat up a woman or anyone is to talk to them and ask questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you are really interested in somebody, ask the questions to get to know them. That is 100% how you chat up people. That's it. Mm. You add everything else it adds is, do we mesh on our thoughts? Do we mesh on our, morals, our ethics, or whatever? But
that leads me on to that's an example of what I would like to master: speech. I would like to be able to talk and present and be able to perfectly convey my message at all times, because I struggle like hell to do that, especially to a non-technical crowd.
You know what's the trick to that? Because that's actually there is a trick to it. You just don't give a shit. Like you just keep on talking.
When bread and butter relies on that, when your income relies on you presenting non-technical information to a non-technical crowd, it matters. You have to give a crap.
No. My point is, like, there is a way to do it, and like when you stress yourself out about like, oh my god, like I'm not sure, like how can I explain this to this non-technical person? Like once you just go easy with a smile and make sure to get like confirmations from them that they understand. So like looking them into the eye. So this is how it's supposed to go, right? Mm. And you wait for confirmation from them. It's like. It's basically a really interesting where you find a place where you can match them on how they think, and then you basically lead them to where you want their understanding to be. But part of it is quite literally not giving a shit and being like very free flowing, smiling like sorry. Like shit happens, right? Like sometimes you're gonna be dying on your dying breath, and you try to get the last few words in. Shit's gonna happen. We're not perfect, and trying to focus on being perfect, I think that's what does you in.
So you've had plenty of time now, Brad. What's your answer to this?
See, I'm mad because my one was stolen completely. Because I'd love to be a master of all languages. One of the things
we could share the power. It would be great.
One of the things I really, I'm a guy who is obsessed with learning. I love learning things. I love sort of learning like more about things, people. It's a curse as much as it is an improvement. Like I'm the kind of guy who, when I've been doing my research, I will find a paper on game theory and start reading it and go, oh, that's an interesting paper about dopamine release in the brain. I'll read that for about an hour. Suddenly, I'm now deep in the depths of biology, and I'm like, oh, I should be doing a PhD thesis on video games. I probably should go back there at some point. And it's the same thing. I think having a mastery of like every language and available would be so helpful. Just to be able to just talk to people or any time, be like,
or
go up to these Koreans, go up to these Africans or whatever, any development, just be like, hey, how'd you do this? How'd you do that? It would be a dream for me. And just be able to understand all language in terms of like non-binary stuff as well, like code as well, would also be a huge.
That's just greedy.
Huge out.
That's just greedy. That as well as understanding.
You said any power.
Any
one
power.
Skill, not power.
Skill, power.
Yeah. To be fair. If you learned languages, you would have to, by nature, be able to translate it to the culture. So it kind of implies an understanding of culture as well, etc. But yeah. So that's our icebreaker.
Yeah, and on to our main topic, which is partially, I think, Fallout 76 and the amazing stories coming from that, but most importantly is the worldwide game design and video game theory. I think I got that
What does that
correct.
mean? Tell me what that means. Worldwide game design. What's the difference between normal game design?
I think it's just very long title to piss me off.
Just so we had to rearrange all our assets this week.
Yep.
That's all it is, isn't it?
That's all academia is. It's you come up to them and say, I've got this really tight, efficient title, and they go, that doesn't look intelligent enough. You just shove a couple more words in, and suddenly they're like, that sounds amazing.
You need some adverbs.
It's like, oh, your title is less than half a page, oh, you pleb.
You joke, but I legitimately was told that by one of my lecturers. It was just literally like, hey, so your thesis title's a bit too small? Can we add a couple more words in? I was like, but it's succinct. It's like telling exactly what it needs. No, it needs a couple more words. Add them in. It sounds more impressive. And I was like, what am I being told?
So we have that problem in software development where we come up with acronyms to name pieces of software or functions and things like that. I came up with one years ago, and all it was a database that stored passwords. And they were all hashed. Don't worry, Josie, they're all hashed in here. But it just stored passwords for a particular thing. And I called it RAPID, and it was Resource Allocation and Password Information Database.
Ooh.
Oh, I loved
That's
it.
beautiful.
I'm
Yes.
the most proud of that acronym out of all of the other ones I've ever come up with.
That's amazing.
I mean, I think you peaked like from this point onwards downwards.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I actually have a big question here. All right. Now, we had stated, if you have following us on Twitter, that we are going to sort of be using this crazy stuff that's going on with Fallout 76 as almost a lessons learned thing. Now, Chris asked a while ago, please, can you get someone from the academia world on? We've achieved this thanks to Patrick's help. And what we want to look at is, we don't necessarily want to sit here and go, oh, Bethesda is horrible. Oh, they're scamming people. Everyone's got their opinions on them. And trust me, I think those of us who have been following the story can happily tell you. But what I want to talk about is sort of the technology and the things behind it. So, for example, when you build a game that is multiplayer, where people are sitting on two different devices, so we're not talking about couch games here. We're talking about having netcode inserted. Do you feel, from things that you may have seen within 76, that they got the netcode wrong? Do you think that there could have been things they could have done better for connectivity? 3 nukes go off and the server crashes.
Well, I think the simple case here is I haven't actually followed it that much, the Fallout 76 stuff. I know enough about it to know it's a catastrophe. But from what my understanding is they've rushed it out. It is simple as that. They haven't quality tested it. They haven't beta tested it properly. In fact, didn't they do the beta like 2 weeks before it actually got released?
Yeah,
I mean that's 2 weeks in development. I might write a form in that amount of time. It's ridiculous.
Tests.
For such a big deployment,
There is a place for this sort of betas, right? So, great example is the game that I'm currently working on. We just got on Steam. Yay, shilling.
Shameless plug. There we go.
Links in chat.
What's that?
Yeah.
I didn't hear that.
So surprising. Anyhow, and what we're actually doing right now, like we got through the certifications and the stuff like that, and the cool thing about Steam is that you can update your stuff fairly painlessly, so you can just toss it in. Once it's accepted, you can just roll updates. And the thing that we're going to test for now, and we actually have closed beta, is it's like a gameplay balance, right? So we're gonna gather beta feedback from people, what they had difficulty with, what was too easy, like, is having 3 enemies in a scene too much early on? Or maybe if it's 2 enemies and one of them is walking, maybe that's easier. Like, this type of stuff that like fixing it is like 2 minutes, like balance stuff. But Bethesda had really huge technical difficulties that they just didn't.
Well, see, I want to back you up a little bit there because you mentioned about the beta thing. When you do development, it makes a difference whether you're doing game development or software development. There's different levels of pre-release candidates. Mm-hmm. You have your alphas, you have your betas and things like that. And I think it might be worth taking just a moment to discuss that in relation to games. Mm-hmm. Because as an example, for anyone who has actually backed, say, a Kickstarter game and has been given access to a game from the get-go, as they're building it, they're developing it, as they're trying to create whatever it is that they're trying to create, you know, there is a path to follow. So Academia Man, Mr. Awesome Sauce Man, Paper Man.
How it's supposed to be done, yo?
Out of curiosity, do you, because I know you also teach, but do you have any kind of thoughts about a really solid development cycle for video games? Because they can vary. If you've got one person doing everything, and you've got a massive team doing everything.
See, this is the big problem with, probably one of the biggest problems in game development right now, in my humble opinion, is there is a very serious problem with the way in which games are worked on in development time. So a big example of this recently is what went on with Rockstar and Red Dead 2. The whole, as our employees did 100-hour weeks and things like that. On the face of it, you see, oh, that's horrible. You made employees work 100-hour weeks. That's terrible. And then they come back and say, oh, it was only in like the last year or so, and not everyone did it, and things like that. But when you scratch further and look deeper in, you see a constant problem going back past, crunch development and things like that, which is where it comes down to right at the start, where these companies sit down and they go, we have this proof of concept, we have an idea, we have a thought, we have a development cycle planned out for the next sequel, whatever you want to put it. They just go, right, we're going to work on a new product of some description. And then right there and then, they go, it's coming out September 29, or end of 2019 or something like that, or end of 2015 or something like that.
They don't do that.
And then that's it.
Let's be clear, they don't do that.
Well, no, they do that. They get told,
yeah,
or they say to appease people, or I should have been that more clear, they appease people by going, it will be out here.
Mm-hmm.
And then they are either forced to or fail to budget their development time correctly. I can't speak to other sort of media companies, but I can speak for games predominantly, because every single time I've been part of a company or had a friend go into a company, that's been a consistent problem. They'll go in and they'll say, we have these deadlines, and they'll say these deadlines are just not feasible. And then people have to work these atrocious times, and it's a snowball effect. Like that decision made by either a company, someone who's got their hands around your company's budget, or some sort of massive publisher will sink or swim a game. And that's what really infuriated me about Bethesda with Fallout 76, because they are their masters. They have their own time. They could have taken their time. They could have been like, oh, we developed this in a specific way to reach this deadline with a finished product. So they have full control of that. They made it very clear. We've got full control of this. We're going to go in on it. We're going to be great. We're going to be good. We're going to be, this is all going to be, and it comes out and it's what it is. And you think to yourself, you can't rely on the fact that investors bullied you. You can't rely on the fact that publishers bullied you. So with Red Dead, it was kind of like, okay, yeah, I can kind of see people pointing a gun at you behind the scenes, being like, get out. And other people,
why are Bethesda any different from Rockstar though? In that instance, Rockstar have enough money to run themselves. They surely don't need investors.
They do, yeah. I think what annoyed me about it was they turned around and said, "Oh yeah, we've been working on this for 7 years," and I was like, 7 years? Okay, cool, that's amazing. But like, why are people rushing at the end?
Because the same happens in the software industry, in the enterprise software industry, which is where I come from. The only solution to this, in my eyes, is something like an agile process, where times are much, much shorter. You don't plan necessarily for a release date in the future. You plan for a cycle of release or a cycle of development that gets you a feature or gets you a particular part of a feature done by the next week or the next 2 weeks. Now, overall, yes, you can plan, but this is a problem I have as a freelancer as well. A lot of the time, clients want me to go, that's going to take me 3 weeks. That's going to take me 4 months. That's going to It's not possible to do that, because whenever I put something down on paper, it's never going to stay the same.
Yeah,
it always changes, and it will. This is a process that it's the natural process of software. It is not possible to plan something out to the absolute nth degree and get a result by a certain time. You can have a general idea, and yes, it's fine if you push things back, but stop. In this instance, unfortunately, game companies are they're slaves to the public. They're not necessarily slaves to internal people as much.
I would strongly disagree with you, because it could be the case back in a day where you had to go to a shop and buy a physical disc, and printing or whatever you do to make physical copies of a game. I don't know the precise name of the process, but that takes time, and shipping to shops takes time. So in order to hit the release, you had very solid windows. Nowadays with digital distribution, I can hit a button and release right now, or I can do it in 2 weeks, or I can do it in a month. The pressure is mostly from, in case of Blizzard and Diablo Immortal being publicly traded company, and I don't know, is Bethesda a public company? Because if it is, then it would explain a lot. But if they're not, then it's still a matter of just fat bonuses. It's still a matter of fat bonuses to the CEOs. Because if you're sitting on a giant IP and people literally buy every single shit that you're releasing, that makes you complacent. I mean, like, how many times people bought Skyrim? Like, Skyrim on this, Skyrim on that, Skyrim on your fridge, Skyrim on your toaster. No wonder, if you're not a gamer but you're a CEO, and you're just like a CEO of a company that sells product, and you can sell absolute shit and people still buy it, no wonder that I see very logical sliding progression into what happened with Bethesda.
He's so animated right now. I just want to point out that Patrick's so animated.
He gets really passionate. But the thing is, I have to take a step back, because we have to remember Patrick is young. CDs stopped being produced before he was born. So... If we take a moment, as someone, for me, because I'm an old lady, I have been around for a very long time. I've been around, back when, 3 1/4 discs, 5 1/4 discs, they're 3.5, 5 1/4 discs, those kinds of things. I was around when tapes were used, okay? So for me, as someone who doesn't do game development, but does app development, software development, web development, that kind of a thing, I see something happening that I feel goes directly back to what Bradley was saying. Now, yes, in today's day and age, we do have deadlines. It makes a difference what you're doing. You're going to have a deadline. And sprints can be used to create easy runs to get to certain features or to work on certain bugs or what have you.
Yeah.
And there are some really good practices out there. However, there are people who firmly believe, and I wishy-washy on this thought, so I'm not firmly in belief of it, but it holds some truth to it. But I firmly believe, because of the fact that digital experiences are digital games, or games are available so quickly on that sort of instant download thing, it almost compels certain companies to go, well, we don't have to make the most polished product, and we can hit these horrible deadlines with hundreds of hours on the crunch times that are happening for each of our employees, because, well, we'll just fix it in a future patch. Or in the case of Bethesda, we'll keep the patches or the issues and bugs that have been around for multiple versions of our game, so they show up in all the other games. But my point is that kind of the almost slack, not necessarily lazy, but it changes your... Yeah, it is a level of complacency. It kind of does that, or there's a feeling to that.
It's when it bleeds down. That's what bothers me more than anything. Because
define bleed down.
So you've got these big AAA companies coming out and saying, "Oh yeah, we our employees are grateful to have worked 100 hours, all this rubbish." And then sort of mid-level companies see it and they're like, "Well, if it's acceptable for them, then it's acceptable for us." And then it goes further and further and further down. So even like you get independent companies who come up and off the ground, like I'm talking like independent companies who start off like maybe 10 employees and then got say 40, 50 more, and then they're now making a product. Whether they adopt the same mentality when. Really, at that level, you should be focusing on, getting your name out there to get that acclaim to really sort of, kick some butt in the industry. And it's really frustrating because there is an expectation where even when we're teaching, they said, oh, maybe we should start teaching students that crunch or all that stuff is something you should 110% always be in. And I was like, should we though?
I'm sorry, that was brought up in school.
Yeah, so one of the things there wouldn't have been an I'm sorry jams and stuff like that, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely, love
so
them.
Games jams became and especially in the UK, a lot of the universities start using games jams as a quote example of game development. I absolutely despise that. Slight anecdote: this mentality was so strong within the university I taught at that I 1 year was in charge of looking after the course, and we brought in a local college of loads of 17-year-old students to join us at the university. So I was in charge of looking at, and I was on the night shift, so I was sleeping there. I was basically not getting any sleep anyway over the 48 hours, and I remember falling asleep, and I've said to them afterwards, I'll never ever do this again because of this. I was just heard like massive knocking on the door of the room I was sleeping in. So I run out, and they've said, "You need to come help us. A man's just collapsed." So I run in. It's a second-year student who's on the floor having a fit, and he's having a fit, and I have to call an ambulance. In they come. I have to call his parents and say to him, "I'm very sorry." I go over to his work desk. You could see the outline of the Red Bull Monster cans he'd been drinking of his arms at the PC because he had just not left his PC. And it was just crunching. He was fully like engrossed, and he was just knocking back the Red Bull just to keep himself awake. And when he came back, like a little while later, he turned around and said, "Oh no, I just wanted to get it done. I was just keep doing it. I didn't take a break because I needed to do it. It needed to be done." Dude, it was a games jam.
We discussed this a few weeks ago. We had quite a lot of people, quite a lot of opinions on this, and it's the problem with a crunch mentality, and it does happen in my industry as well occasionally, but it's nowhere near as prevalent, is that it's not healthy for anybody, and the employers have a moral responsibility to make sure that people go home, to make sure that they go home at 5 and 6 and see the family and don't, because people in our position, developers, love to develop. And if we're developing something really cool like a computer game and we've got one little bug that we need to do, but it's a really hard bug to fix, we want to fix it and we'll be thinking about it. And it's healthier for us to go home, think about it at home, or even don't think about it at all and keep it off, and then come back and it'll be fixed in the morning immediately. That almost always happens to all of us.
Well, see, this is the interesting thing. For me, I am very familiar with sort of the blinder mentality. My husband teases me when I go onto a big project and I'm working towards a deadline, because he'll be talking to me and I won't remember he has said anything to me at all because my blinders are up and I'm just charging forward. And like you said, I get really into something I have never been taught. In fact, my educational process through my master's degree, in fact, almost anti-taught me this kind of mentality. But I have never been taught how to stop mid-flow, put down, shake it off, and move on to something that is other than insert development project here. I have never learned that. In fact, every single job I've ever had where I've done some development, any place, I work for myself now, so I'm a lot cooler. Here I am thinking maybe I should take December off. I would never have done that in the past. Mm-hmm. And even now with me thinking about it, I'm getting shakes because I'm like, but then this one thing, but I have never been taught that. My school and education, the places I've worked pretty much taught me, you are almost always on. There is no shutdown, which is why I have those dreams where I will see lines of code flowing through my brain, all perfectly indented, all perfectly colored, except for that damn IntelliSense that is just staring me in the face. And I'm like, what the hell? And
then you're just not unplugging yourself from the Matrix. That's
I seriously think I probably am properly plugged in. But I will come up with the answers in my dreams, bolt upright, and I cannot go back to sleep. Even if I were to write this down, because Patrick brought up, well, you should just keep a notebook by your bed, because we had mentioned something about this before. Even if I write it down, I can't. Because I have spent, I'm over 40 people, I'm an old lady. I have spent a very long time in my life not being trained how to stop. So as much as I sit there and I go, oh my God, these crunch time things that we're hearing about are terrifying. If I am honest with myself,
it's not important.
Unknowingly, I put myself through the same crunches when I'm in development.
Yeah. That's the big hypocrisy, isn't it? We all do it. We all do it.
Because
let me do it. Okay, so let me amend it. Maybe not just a notebook and quarter of whiskey. But it's really interesting that you say it because it's a thing that is being taught nowadays to I think pretty much every single concept artist that is entering the workforce is that in any given day you have 2 hours of creative work, 6 hours of being productive, and anything that you do beyond that is a waste of time, and it actively makes your next day less productive.
That's good.
So basically what you do is that the workflow of a concept artist is that I go to office, I make my coffee, first 2 hours is sketches, bunch of different sketches, highly creative, highly, problem solving work. I send those to approval, we discuss it with the rest of the team, and then I have we pick what I should develop further. And then for the next 6 hours that I have in a day, I develop them further. And then the hour hits, off I go, see ya.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds nice in theory, but I don't know.
There's nothing wrong with doing extra hours occasionally, and that's the key.
There's nothing wrong, but I've noticed that if I do it, I start being resentful. There is this sort of negativity brewing within me, both towards myself and towards my coworkers because they don't stop me. So it's a balancing act.
You see, I'm generally a very productive person in general, in life, not just at work, and I'm usually much more productive.
Chris is perfect.
I am.
Everyone
perfect.
should be aware. Chris is absolutely perfect.
I said that in a presentation I did yesterday, and then pressed the wrong slide.
Ladies and gentlemen, you made it sound like you kicked through the door and went, I am perfect. Let me look at the wrong presentation. Oh, wait, I'm still perfect.
Well, he's perfect in his imperfections. We know this.
That was just the comedic timing.
I can compartmentalize my work very well these days, but I've learned from my own mistakes. When I was very young, I think I was 17 or 18, I was running an IT department for a very small company near to where I live now, actually, and they took the mick out of me, basically, and they paid me a very small wage, and I was working all the hours God sends. And then one weekend, a RAID controller went down on a hard drive, on one of the servers, and all the hard drives failed at the same time. So I spent 72 hours up in reinstalling the servers, getting everything working, and then on Monday I was about an hour away when the boss walked in from where I needed to be, so it was exactly like it was on the Friday when it actually went down, and he said, "Is it done yet?" And I didn't get a thanks. He came in at the weekend as well and saw that I was there, so he knew that I'd done the work, and it wasn't my fault. I was very young when that happened in my career, but I've had one or two other instances where people have pushed me to try and do extra work outside of an agreement or outside of my obligations, at least. And sometimes I'll do it. If it's my fault, I will definitely do it. If it's something that I've done wrong, it needs fixing and it's urgent. Or if there's a hard deadline, people are leaving an office and the windows the doors are getting all locked, etc., and it needs to be done by now, then yes, it will done. But otherwise, it's not healthy in the slightest for anybody. It's not healthy for you, your family, your wife, your kids, whoever you've got in your life.
My favourite one is your thanks is that you get paid. I was genuinely told that once. I did a week. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was working for a company and they told me. Yeah.
All of us.
No, I'd flown out to America for this game company. We pretty much sold out the state of Indiana of the game we were working in, because it was a physical card game as well as a as well as video game. I worked my ass off. I didn't take a break the entire week we were there. I did not take a break during the day. I woke up, went straight to the convention theater, sold the game, gave demos, talked to people. The other designers went off and did talks for YouTube videos. The CEO went off to CEO stuff, and there was me on the front line with the team who were doing the game. I was giving judge advice, showing people to play the game. I just didn't stop. I didn't take a break or anything, and I didn't expect a thank you. I knew they would never give me a thank you, but I got back home, and then instantaneously they were just like, right, you're now driving a van to mid of the UK on jet lag, and I was like, I've never driven a van before, whatever, I'll do it. So I did it. I got there. I was absolutely knackered. And about 2 days into this other convention, I was coming back from America, I turned around and said, "Hey, it's fine doing this, but no one said to me oh, good stuff, Brad. I appreciate you doing that. And then my producer generally turned to me and said, you're being paid a wage, right? And I was like, yeah. He goes, well, that's your thanks from the company. And I was like,
no, that's the company's obligation to me as a human being. Thank you very much. Do you want
to run that by me again? To be fair, this was the same company that told me that I wasn't allowed to be proud of my work because pride leads to arrogance. They didn't want arrogant people working.
Oh yeah, I haven't told you that story, dude. Bradley, this is a great story.
It was just so slight tangent, but I worked on. They brought me in, and within like the first 2 months, they were like, "Oh, we're complete. We don't know much about card games. Can you save us? Can you save us and add some stuff into the game?" I made like 250 card prototypes or something like that. I don't remember. It was a ton of prototypes, and eventually some of them got accepted into the game. They were going to be printed. I saw the preprints for them. I balanced them and everything. And I was like, I was super proud of them. And I was just having a conversation with a colleague saying, "Oh man, I'm so proud. I've only been here a little while, but the designs I've put in as like a sort of balancer / mid-level designer is going to be in the game. They're going to be printed. I'm going to frame them and put them on my wall. I'm so proud, and I'm really happy that the design team we all came together and put them through. It's really cool." And next day I got called by a producer to come to a side room, and he sits down and he puts his hand on my shoulder and he goes, "So it's come to my attention that you've been telling people you're proud of the work you've been doing here." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm so proud. We worked really great as a team. It's coming along really well. I feel like I'm adding something." He goes, yeah. Could you not do that? Because we don't want that kind of person working here. And I was like, "Can you clarify what you mean by this?" And he says, "Oh, well, you see, prideful people, that leads to being very arrogant. And if you're an arrogant person, you won't last very long at this company." And I was like,
"Oh, see you later then. Bye."
I turned around, I said to him, respectfully, I disagree. I feel like having some pride in what you do is important, especially if it's something that you care about. And in no way was I taking credit for anyone's work. I understand this isn't a vacuum. I don't make the card and it just magically appears. There's artists, there's UX and UI people, which is I'm part of that and as well, but I didn't really set the point. But I was involved for a lot of it, and I was proud of what I've achieved. And he goes, "Well, we'll have to agree to disagree then." And he sends me back to my desk. And after that, he then said to me, every email I ever sent, I need to CC or BCC him into it to check and see if I was still being arrogant. I for a long while I was like, this. I knew it wasn't. To be fair, I knew it wasn't right straight away. But I was blinded. I had blinkers on. I was so happy with what I was doing that I took it, and then it was later on when I'd left the company. I was just like, oh my god, I should have just left.
You know what?
That was toxic as fuck, honestly. Yeah. Like
it's genuinely like I'd never before.
I am good at what I do, and I have the right to be proud when I do a good job of something that I do. I am a little bit arrogant, but I'm not a twat with it. I'm not a twatty, arrogant person. That's the difference. I'm proud and I'm perfect, but I'm not.
Walking around telling everyone I was amazing. Do you know what the best thing was? The best thing was, so you remember I said, but that it was someone had brought it to his attention. The person who brought it to attention was an artist. It was a woman who'd drawn the art for the card that I designed, and she assumed that I was saying to this other work colleague that I had made the whole card, as in like its layout, its picture. When all I'd done is just prototype what it did, its numbers, its stats, and all that sort of stuff. And she then went and said to this producer that I was taking credit for her work. And I was like, and then eventually when I found that out, I said to her, "You do realize the company won't even let me install Paint on my PC, right? How the hell could I have made the art for the car? I have no art things on. Why would you even think that? Like, that's so ridiculous. Like, what? It was completely bizarre. I've never ever seen that, but it was
Here comes Patrick's mind reading. So the company seems to have such a toxic situation that probably shit like that happened before. Yeah, like maybe she did some stuff, and then the art lead was like, "Oh yeah, I totally made those."
Probably.
I mean, shit like that happens. So
it was genuinely. What surprised me was that was a very harsh example, but it goes back to what I mentioned before about how this culture sort of bleeds down. I've got friends of mine who are currently working at Rockstar North, and I had a chat to them when the whole thing came up, and they said officially, we're not really allowed to talk about it, despite everything else. But unofficially, I can legitimately say that what you're experiencing is very similar to stuff that I've seen experiencing within Rockstar. I can't tell you what it was, and then they kind of went, wink, wink. Yeah. I can't tell you who it was to, but it is a thing we have seen before. And it concerned me because it was so normal in the company I worked for. It was just every day. It was just kind of like, they just like, yeah, this just happens occasionally.
Right.
And I was just like,
Okay. All right.
We're going to have to stop talking about this.
We will.
These guys had his hands. I'm so sorry.
It's all good. But those of you who are listening in the future, you haven't seen it. But Chris has been steadily through this discussion, getting more and more agitated to the point where he is having to wipe his brow from the frustration. He is absolutely...
He collapsed! He just had a blue screen of death right here and now. So,
okay. So I'm going to interrupt with a couple of things. One, we are running out of time.
Yes.
Oh.
We are at some point in time, we're going to have to... Last week on our show, we did weird dev stories. I have a feeling we're going to have to dedicate a show to nothing but horror stories and accolades in our development careers, and just have the four of us sitting there talking. It may have to happen.
Just rolls up your sleeve like, right, let's go.
All right, let's do this.
How bad can you go?
Yeah, exactly. Now, for one thing, I'm going to throw out here that hopefully will calm Chris down. My hope is that there will be some joy when I finish this. But when we're talking about the whole crunch concept with development and things like that, there is a game jam out there that I actually would recommend people to participate in, and it's Pirate Jam. Are you familiar with Pirate Jam?
I remember Pirate Jam.
You should know Pirate Jam. So American McGee, the creator of Alice, the creator of In the Woods, American McGee holds roughly once a year a Pirate Jam, and I believe it's in Singapore? Shanghai?
I think it is in Singapore.
I think it might be in Singapore. But the entire purpose behind the game jam is this. You work together in your teams, you come up with your concepts, but in order to work on them, you kind of need electricity. So you are using boats to travel from island to island. You have to stop and play games with whiskey and stuff like that. And it is actually set up in a way where you have your dedicated crunch push down time. And then the rest of the time, you are in the most gorgeous place on this planet. You are sailing on ships. And I think it kind of forces you out of that. I have to work and code for 72 hours straight to the point where I die in my chair to please somebody who's only thanks to me is paying me cash. So there is a really good game jam out there. And if it's something you're interested in, he's got it. I think it's actually happening soon, or has happened. I can't remember, but check it. It has just happened for this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's really cool because you just fly out there and you're on ships sailing all over the place. It's really hard to do nothing but crunch your game out. And it's a week-long adventure. So there is something good to come of it.
And the games they produce are great as well. That's the cool thing. Like, most of them are always cool or awesome or inventive in some way.
Yes, and they usually have somebody on department. I think it's from Unity, actually, like one of the Unity developers or things who's usually present, or one of the game design engines who is present and things like that. But we are at the point of the show where I am afraid to ask. We have a section of our show called RTFM, which stands for Read the Fucking Manual, where we kind of use it as a way to sort of spitball and rant out something that is ever so slightly frustrating and just kind of get it off our chest before, continuing on with life. Patrick, do you have an RTFM today?
I mean, I don't know. We already made so much raging that I don't know that Spiky can hold that. Like, I genuinely don't feel like introducing any more negativity into his life.
I've stopped listening. Sorry. What were you saying?
He's blocked it out.
Honestly, as you were talking, all these flashbacks were coming back to me. All these things that have happened to me over my career, and all of these unreasonable idiots that I've come across that have had... that just haven't thought about the human element of what they're doing. And
Absolutely.
That's the thing. It's everybody. Humans are needed to do all of the work that you need to do to make your money. So treat them like fucking humans, for God's sake. Don't look down at somebody when they leave the office at 4 o'clock and everyone else decides to leave at 6 o'clock because they want to. It's their choice. Just right.
Yeah, we found his trigger word.
Okay, everyone together, deep breath in and then out. Woosa. Exactly, woosa. Woosa.
So, are we finishing?
We're definitely getting to the point of finishing. I am going to give Patrick, so no RTFM for you?
I mean, yeah, I guess not.
Excellent.
I can give one if you want.
Go for a really quick one that hopefully won't make his blood pressure rise anymore.
When I was I worked for a small company in London as a creative director of the company, and they turned around to me and said, "Hello, we need you to redistribute this game, cultural localization, for a PSP game for potential release on tablet and phone. We want you to do that. Can you do that?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, I can do that. I'm the creative director. I should be able to do that." So I say yes, and I didn't quite understand what I was saying yes to at the time because I assumed they'd be reasonable. And then they turned around to me and said, "So, here's the game. It is a Monster Hunter-esque game, but the premise is that you are a small human being shrunk into a human body, and you have to fight off diseases while repairing the human body from the inside." And I was like, that sounds amazing. It's a Monster Hunter game. I love Monster Hunter. And they said, great, you have 2 weeks to completely redesign the whole systems to be on phones, including a whole new brand new UI and control system. And can you also culturally localize it and do a bit of translation? Okay, thanks, bye. And then they put the phone down.
And implement it.
Patrick just threw his headset. I remember I was in the call. I was in a Skype call with my other director, the guy from Japan who was working, called Hifumi-san, who worked on the Clock Tower series of video games, and he just went "Okirimasu," and then just from the call. What the hell? Just, like it was, and I was so there. I remember being like, did they just not realize how much? Because at the time I was finishing my masters while also starting to go into my PhD. So I was there. It was 2013. I remember being like, I don't know how to respond to this. Like, so the next day I called up the guy and was like, hey, so just put it out there. That's an atrocious amount of work.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's just like, whoa, whoa. Okay.
You're looking at yeah.
And I did it to the best of my ability, but then when I sent it back, it was on the exact 14 days later. Sent it back to them, and I got a message that said, "This is barely passable," and I was like, "You."
Yeah.
I think I was bleeding out of my eyes by the end of it.
Now, it's understandable that non-technical people don't understand how long some technical things take, and it is our responsibility to make sure that's clear.
Yeah.
Yes,
But if they choose not to listen, and they're the ones that sign the checks, and they're the ones that make the high-level decisions, what can you do?
So, Chris, do you have an RTFM?
I don't know.
Oh.
No. I've had enough today. This was a brilliant podcast until about 10 minutes ago, 15 minutes ago.
Oh, can I have anti-RTFM? Can I have something positive?
Yes, give us something positive, Patrick.
Okay,
And then I'll give you my RTFM.
So, for those who may or may not know, I've been working in game development for 6 years. And so it happened that I never released a video game. Because I was always hired to work on other people's games, and usually projects would get cancelled or die or run out of budget. That's why you get paid on a weekly basis.
I'm so sorry, Patrick. Stop exposing me.
So
I
also work on game with Bradley, but that was because like a programmer sort of bailed on us. But anyhow, so despite being quite experienced game developer and doing all those crazy shit, I never really finished the game. So that's kind of weird. And today, the first game that I'm finally finishing, and it's getting on Steam. And I gotta tell you guys, just like seeing the assets, seeing like I wrote that text for the like it's on the Steam store, like that list, like I made that, and like that icon, like I did that icon, and that's fucking cool. And then like you launch it, and it's like all fucking working through Steam. It's like, wow, a thing that I made is now like out there and everyone can see it. It's like on the biggest PC gaming platform ever, and so far like people are very positive. I mean, God, I hope it sells.
I'll tell you what. That right there, that one statement pretty much sums up development and software in general.
It was
What I
so
will say,
positive, and then it was
it
so
was-
please sell. Oh my God.
I feel the best way to congratulate you, Patrick, is to remind you that you also still have somewhere in a game lines of code that say Kuva.
Yeah.
So
There is 42 of them.
there is that.
Oh, you killed him again.
Okay,
So,
so
My RTFM, I just have
sorry.
one thing to say.
Uh-oh.
If you have a repo that you are responsible for and that you maintain, please do not just randomly hand the admin keys and publication keys to your repo to somebody you don't know, because that is horrible. It is a security risk. And so help me God, Vue.js CLI.
event stream. Event stream, Bitcoin
Event stream,
mining.
Bitcoin mining. Yep, it's a pain in the butt. Please, 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 please be responsible with your repos.
Yes. Okay, so we have come to the show close. I would normally at this point invite a guest back. However,
My blood pressure will not be able to handle it, so we're not doing that.
no. In all seriousness,
he'll
it's
be
been
back.
a wonderful stream. I've really enjoyed it. Apart from the stress and the heat levels that this room has got to. So, have you got anything that you want to pimp? Have you got a Twitter you want to tell people about? Have you got any?
Yeah, you can find me at BSJCupo. I tweet musings about game design development, occasionally plug my thesis, retweet cool stuff that's happening in my area, or any game that I'm currently looking into or playing. Other than that, that's really it for me at the minute. I'm currently looking for more development work. I'm just writing up my final bits of my thesis now, and I'm just really sort of getting to the point where academia's burnt me out. So I'm really looking for places to start trying to get to work in the industry again, because I do miss it. It's been a while since I've been in development, and I do miss it. I just want to work again. I'm itching to get out there, because like you said, man, you know you're good at something. You just want to keep doing it, and I know I'm good at stuff. Like all the companies I work for have been like, yeah, you're great. Just we run out of funding or whatever. It's like, yeah. Other than that, I just want to plug Patrick's game again, because everything I've seen about it looks actually awesome.
Yeah, it does.
It looks
look
like a
really
VR
good.
game I actually want to play, apart from VR chat, and that's just because I wanted to role play as Ugandan Knuckles.
Well, see, this is where I turn to Patrick and I go, Patrick, I absolutely love you, darling and dearly. Do you happen to have a VR headset you feel like shipping over to me?
I'm sure you can get one on
That's
company
the
accounts.
only thing stopping me from doing anything in the VR world is the fact that I really want an HTC Vive. So if you would be a really good boy and send that my way, I would be a happy girl. And at which point in time, I could try your game along with Beat Saber, because I really want to play Beat Saber as
That
well.
was so fun.
Yeah, everyone loves Beat Saber, but
No,
good
but
news
the
is-
game you have, it looks good, but
It looks
I
better than-
can't play it because
Yeah,
of technological limitations.
But the prices are dropping, so I think nowadays you can get like HTC Vive new headset for 400, used probably for 200 even. So it's
Yeah.
looking more and more like, if you think about it, because like nowadays, like gamers, like solid gamers, they have beast PC and then a console or two because exclusives. So think about it as just another console.
That's the way of thinking about it. Like I said, there is a way to see it like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's all about perspective. I mean, at the same time, we could. Well, that's a whole nother topic
It
for a
is.
whole nother question. How about if I prevent Chris's blood pressure from rising even further due to the stage that was just difficult to say, etc. But yes, so please do me a favor, everyone. Go visit dnistream.live. It's our live website. You can find links to our Discord, our GitHub repo, because we actually publish stuff there. Podcast link will be coming because you can actually listen to us through a podcast, and you don't always have to be present, although we would love to see you join us Thursday night, 7 p.m. GMT for Documentation Not Included, as we literally cover everything from technology, security, game dev, app dev. See, I told you I'm a butcher of languages. I can't speak English today. And also, if you go to dnistream.live and you want to be a guest, you can just go to our contact form and reach out. Come talk to us. Come debate with us. See if you can't get Chris's blood pressure to lower.
We have some cool guests lining up, right, for the next 2 or 3.
Well, we do have some interesting ones. So the one we were going to have next week, we're going to be talking about what the interview process is like and talking about one of the topics that I really want to dig into, which is known as the interview process brain rape. Unfortunately, our guest has required a bit of a vacation, perhaps because we've stressed them out already because they are a previous guest. They'll be joining us in January instead. So next week's topic is a little bit left open. If you think you've got what it takes, you can come join us. Or it may be us strange people, me, Chris, and Patrick. I don't know. Maybe we might invite Bradley back, although I might need to get blood pressure medication for Chris if we're going to do that. We'll see.
New sponsor incoming, like a blood pressure.
Halfway through.
Yeah.
Very useful.
Stressed out at work? Take these pills. They make you feel great, see?
If you
Yes.
think about it, we're like the perfect platform to advertise medication because all of the developers self-medicate, and this is development podcast. It's perfect. Send us money. Give us money.
I can already hear the adverts now. Are you feeling stressed out at the desk at work? Take Primetafloxifene. It'll only make your eyeballs bleed a little bit.
Do you need to work extra hours because your employer is a complete twat?
Adderall. It makes it work.
Adderall, go!
Yes.
Oh, Adderall sponsor, let's go.
I mean, dude,
Now.
I would gladly sell drugs for money. Legally.
It's enough of that, right? Let's move on. Come on.
All right, yes. So anyway, next week's topic is going to be up in the air until I either find somebody who wants to come on and share their thoughts, experiences, and their livelihood. But December 13th, we have Hamid joining us from Axosoft, and we're going to be talking about what it is to take an idea or a concept for software, it could even work in games, and take it from idea to something that actually puts money in the bank.
Cool stuff, cool stuff.
So that'll be December 13th. Now, until then...
Yeah, until then, you can find us on Twitter, at DNI Stream, where we post things we post usually, which are mostly dev related, but also podcast related. And I'm pretty sure that if I get my hands on Twitter credentials, I'll be posting tips for how to cure yourself, mostly with the use of alcohol, because this is about the only thing on my mind now. I'm in pain. I'm dying. Please help.
Wow.
All right. Right. So yes, massive thank you to Bradley. Massive thank you to Josie. Massive thank you to Patrick. I've actually had a great podcast, to be honest. As much as I've whinged and got angry, but this is my catharsis. So what can I say? You know.
Yes, and we want to say hello to you, Milso, to Banana Bread. What a great name. Billy Jones, Gwentz, I see you. That's my husband. Samansky, which I'm, of course, butchering. Drake and Fairdale. Well, we've got I'm Runel and Bid the Dog and Pseudonym. I wonder who that is. And a whole bunch of others that I may have missed. I do apologize. But thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next week where we talk even more crazy things and I guess basically drive Patrick crazy. Maybe Chris will be cured by then. Either that or he might be dead, at which case, Bradley, if you're looking for podcasting work.
What can I say? I'm a perfect podcast guy.
Can you hear that? Can you hear my pulse?
He's sucking his pulse. I'm not dead yet, son. How dare you?
But yes,
Right. Goodbye,
all
everybody.
of us here, good night at Documentation Not Included, whoever the hell we are.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.